Justice. It's a word we invoke with reverence, a concept we hold as a cornerstone of civilized society. It represents a promise, a social contract that guarantees fairness, order, and protection for all. But this grand ideal isn't an abstract force, it is a structure, meticulously built on a single, indispensable foundation: truth. Every piece of evidence, every sworn testimony, every legal argument is a brick in this foundation. When that foundation is deliberately compromised by a lie, it doesn't just create a small fissure, it sends shockwaves through the entire structure, threatening a collapse of the very system designed to uphold our values. Day after day, we place our collective faith in the legal process. We watch as citizens ascend the steps of courthouses, trusting that within those walls, a time-honored ritual will unfold. We believe in the adversarial system, the clash of arguments designed to forge truth in the crucible of the courtroom. We trust that this process, guided by rules of evidence, has the power to meticulously separate fact from fiction, to shield the innocent, and to ensure guilt is assigned only when proven beyond a reasonable doubt. But this intricate machinery of justice is not automated. It is operated by human beings, judges, jurors, lawyers, and witnesses, each a fallible person with their own perceptions and motivations. The entire system hinges on a fragile assumption of their honesty. So what happens when that assumption is shattered? What happens when a witness under oath chooses not to tell the truth? When a lie is not a mistake, but a weapon, deliberately aimed at the heart of this delicate process. The act of perjury is not just a crime, it is a betrayal of the highest order. The consequences ripple outward with devastating force. For the individual falsely accused, it is the beginning of a nightmare. Their life is upended, their reputation shredded, their relationships strained to the breaking point. They face the terrifying prospect of losing their freedom, their future, everything they hold dear based on a fabrication. But the damage doesn't stop there. Each wrongful conviction, each revealed lie, chips away at the community's trust. It breeds cynicism and fear, making people question the integrity of the very institutions designed to be their ultimate protectors. A single, calculated lie can send an innocent person to a cold prison cell and leave a permanent scar on the public's confidence in justice itself. At the heart of this challenge are the scales of justice, a symbol of the delicate equilibrium our legal system strives to maintain. These scales represent a dynamic and difficult balancing act. On one side, we place the profound societal need to believe and support victims. For centuries, many who came forward, especially survivors of assault, were met with skepticism and blame. We have learned painfully that creating a safe and supportive environment for people to report crimes is essential. Their courage to speak out is the first and most critical step in holding perpetrators accountable. But the other side of the scale holds a principle that is just as sacred, a bedrock of Western law: the presumption of innocence. This isn't a suggestion, it's a command. It dictates that the burden of proof lies entirely with the state. It demands that an accusation, no matter how serious, is not evidence of guilt. This principle forces the system to be rigorous, to test every claim, and to commit to uncovering objective, verifiable truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. It is the ultimate safeguard against tyranny and error. When these two fundamental principles collide, the potential for injustice is immense. This collision brings us to a small town in Pennsylvania, a place that became the epicenter of a case that serves as a sobering reminder of these very stakes. It is a story that demonstrates how easily the scales can be tipped by the weight of a single lie. It is a story about a false accusation, a community torn apart, and an innocent man's harrowing fight to reclaim his life from the brink of total destruction. It all started on a summer day in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. A 20-year-old woman named Anjela Borisova Urumova called 911 with a terrifying story. She claimed she had been the victim of a violent and harrowing crime. She told dispatchers that a man had kidnapped her from a local shopping center, forced her into his truck, attempted to sexually assault her. Urumova provided a name, Daniel Pearson. Based on the severity of her claims, law enforcement acted swiftly. They located Pearson, arrested him on the spot. For Daniel Pearson, his world was turned upside down in an instant. He was unable to post the $200,000 bail set for his release. As Daniel Pearson languished in a Bucks County jail cell, the weight of the accusations was crushing. Facing charges of kidnapping and assault, his bail was set at an impossible $1 million. Each passing hour was a stark reminder that while the law presumes innocence, a cold concrete cell is a terrifying reality. His life was on hold, hanging by the thinnest of threads, entirely dependent on investigators to uncover the truth of what really happened that day. Meanwhile, detectives with the Hilltown Township Police Department were diligently building their case against him. They had a victim, Anjela Urumova, who had presented a detailed and harrowing account of her abduction. On the surface, her story was compelling and emotionally charged, giving them what appeared to be solid, probable cause for Pearson's arrest. The initial phase of any investigation is to work from the victim's statement, gathering evidence that supports the charges filed. But a foundational principle of good police work is that a compelling story is not the same as objective fact. A crucial part of any investigation is to not only build a case, but to rigorously verify the claims being made. It involves a healthy dose of professional skepticism and a meticulous search for corroborating evidence. Investigators are trained to deconstruct a narrative, piece by piece, and rebuild it using independent sources. They must follow the evidence even if it leads them in a direction that contradicts their initial assumptions. With this principle in mind, the detectives began to systematically scrutinize every detail of Anjela Urumova's account. They created a minute-by-minute timeline of the events she described, mapping her alleged movements. They re-examined her written statement, looking for internal contradictions or details that seemed out of place. They sought out surveillance footage, analyzed cell phone data to pinpoint locations through cell tower pings, and began to re-interview peripheral witnesses she had mentioned in her story. It was during this painstaking process that the first red flags started to emerge. A timestamp on a receipt didn't match her timeline. A witness recalled a minor detail differently. At first, they were small discrepancies, but as the detectives dug deeper, more inconsistencies piled up. It was like pulling at a loose thread that, instead of tightening the narrative, began to unravel it completely. The solid case they thought they had was starting to feel unstable, prompting a shift in their perspective. The definitive breakthrough came from the cold, impartial world of digital evidence. Detectives obtained surveillance video from a camera near where the violent kidnapping allegedly took place. The team gathered, expecting to witness the terrifying struggle Urumova had described. But the footage showed something entirely different. It did not show a violent abduction. Instead, it showed Urumova and Pearson interacting calmly, getting into his truck without any sign of a struggle or force. Their body language was relaxed. It was a moment of stunned silence for the investigators. The visual evidence directly contradicted the core of their victim's testimony. This discovery shifted the entire investigation. Furthermore, investigators analyzed text messages exchanged between Urumova and Pearson. The tone was friendly, painting a picture of two people planning to meet. Armed with the indisputable video and revealing texts, detectives brought Urumova in for another interview. When confronted with the evidence that dismantled her story, her facade crumbled. She eventually confessed to investigators that she had fabricated the entire incident. The charges against Daniel Pearson were immediately dropped. After days spent in a cell for a crime he didn't commit, he was released from jail, a free but deeply scarred man. When the truth finally emerged, the justice system, which had been so dangerously misled, was compelled to act. The legal consequences for Anjela Urumova were significant, designed not only as punishment, but as a powerful statement about the sanctity of truth within the halls of justice. Her calculated deception had weaponized the very system designed to protect the innocent, and the response had to be decisive, reflecting the gravity of her actions. This was a wound inflicted upon the integrity of the legal process itself, and a simple warning would not suffice. The court's task was to deliver a sentence that would serve as a stark deterrent. The Bucks County District Attorney's Office moved forward with a meticulous prosecution, charging Urumova with two critical offenses. The first, making false reports to law enforcement, addressed the initial lie that set the entire devastating chain of events in motion. This charge recognized the immense waste of police resources and the profound injustice of a wrongful arrest based on a fabrication. But the second charge was even more severe: perjury. Lying under oath is considered a direct assault on the heart of the judicial process. The entire system of justice is built on the presumption that testimony given in court is truthful. Perjury poisons that well, rendering the search for truth nearly impossible. Legal experts consider it a corrosive crime that threatens the very framework of the justice system. Faced with the overwhelming evidence of her deceit, including the GPS data that unraveled her story, Urumova chose to plead guilty. This avoided a lengthy trial but led directly to her sentencing. The judge, tasked with weighing the harm done against the possibility of rehabilitation, handed down a multifaceted sentence. First, she was sentenced to serve a term of 11.5 to 23 months, nearly 2 years, in county jail. This was not a token punishment. It was a substantial period of incarceration meant to underscore the severity of her crimes. It represented a tangible consequence for the freedom she had stolen from an innocent man, but her punishment wouldn't end upon her release. The judge also ordered Urumova to serve 7 years of probation. This long tail of supervision would significantly curtail her freedom for the better part of a decade, requiring her to report regularly to a probation officer, submit to monitoring, and adhere to strict rules of conduct. It was a constant reminder that her debt to society was far from paid. The sentence also included a crucial rehabilitative component. Urumova was required to undergo a comprehensive mental health evaluation and follow any recommended treatment. This part of the order sought to address the troubling question at the heart of the case. Why? The court mandated this evaluation not just as a condition of her sentence, but as an attempt to understand the motivations behind such a destructive act and to mitigate the risk of it ever happening again. Furthermore, the court addressed the direct financial harm inflicted upon Daniel Pearson. Urumova was ordered to pay restitution. This wasn't a fine paid to the state, it was a direct payment to her victim to compensate him for the concrete monetary damages he suffered. This included not only the wages he lost while unjustly imprisoned and fighting for his name, but also the significant legal fees he incurred to defend himself against her false claims. It was a tangible, if incomplete, acknowledgement of the financial ruin she had caused. Finally, and perhaps most importantly for Daniel Pearson's future peace of mind, the judge issued a strict and permanent no-contact order. This legal mandate prohibited Anjela Urumova from ever contacting Daniel Pearson again by any means. It was more than just a line in a sentencing document, it was a legal shield, a fortress wall erected to protect him from any future harassment, manipulation, or attempts at contact. This legal barrier was essential to give Pearson a chance to reclaim his life, to provide a measure of security, and the space to begin healing without the looming threat of his accuser re-entering his world. It was the court's acknowledgement that the trauma he endured required a permanent separation from its source. But while these legal measures hold Urumova accountable in the eyes of the law, they can never fully erase the profound and lasting damage. Justice, in its purest form, is about restoration, but some things, once broken, can never be made perfectly whole again. The time Daniel Pearson lost, the reputation that was tarnished, the trust that was shattered, these are losses that no court sentence can fully repay. The emotional scars from being wrongfully imprisoned, from having your character assassinated by someone you trusted, and from being accused of such terrible crimes can last a lifetime. The psychological trauma of such an ordeal often outlives any jail sentence or probation period. It's a shadow that follows a person long after their name has been cleared. Ultimately, the case of Anjela Urumova and Daniel Pearson is a harrowing cautionary tale. It underscores the critical importance of truth and the devastating repercussions that follow when that truth is deliberately betrayed. The sentence was a defense of the legal system itself, and a solemn acknowledgement of the human cost when it's turned into a weapon. The scales of justice were eventually balanced, but the story serves as a permanent reminder of how easily and how terrifyingly they can be tipped.